What is going on, guys? Danny here. Welcome back to the channel, and I hope you're all doing well. You might be in the market for a brand new graphics card, whether it's for a build from scratch or you're upgrading an older GPU. I'm always happy to make recommendations on a new graphics card purchase, but in this video, I'm going to explain why you're better off not buying a new graphics card at the moment, otherwise you might find yourself in a world of remorse in a couple months. During this month and the past month, we've seen quite a lot of leaks and rumors pertaining to next generation graphics cards from both AMD and Nvidia, which will deliver substantial performance improvements along with new user experience features. So in this video, we'll be going over some of those major leaks, as they'll definitely give you some food for thought and probably convince you to postpone your upgrade plan. With AMD's Radeon Technologies group, there's been a lot of hype surrounding their next generation graphics cards, which are based on the all-new RDNA 2 architecture. AMD have been pretty forthcoming in regards to talking about their next big architecture. We know that AMD have made a bold claim that RDNA 2 will deliver a 50% performance per watt improvement. Along with that, there will be major architectural changes made which will make RDNA 2 a huge leap over the current RDNA microarchitecture. As AMD have decided last year that it was time to shift away from GCN designed GPUs with RDNA, they started to execute different changes and made improvements to the design to fix the problems with GCN and make it a better gaming focused architecture. Albeit there were still some remnants of GCN in the design which RDNA 2 will address. GCN was great for compute workloads, and in many cases, they would be ahead of their Nvidia counterparts, but the opposite would occur when you would bring in traditional rasterization workloads. Nvidia have had the better technology here, and AMD's old GCN architecture couldn't keep up. This was quite apparent way back when Nvidia released Maxwell. RDNA 2 will bring higher IPC to the table. It will be a lot more efficient, but along with that, it will bring higher clock speeds. When you put all of that together, you're looking at a new generation of graphics cards, which sound like they'll be truly a significant leap from the last. Thanks to both Microsoft and Sony unveiling their next-gen game consoles, such as the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, respectively, we got to learn more information about the advancements and benefits that RDNA 2 brings to the table. With the Xbox Series X, it was quite clear that AMD's next generation would be quite efficient, as Microsoft managed to fit in this large 52 compute unit GPU into such a small power envelope, and with clock speeds that are quite high for a console. At 1825 MHz, while that might seem conservative if you're looking at it from a desktop GPU standpoint, you have to keep in mind that these game consoles are a lot more thermally and power constrained. So it is quite impressive with what they were able to achieve. If you're still not convinced, then we did also have the unveiling of the PS5, where Sony decided to clock their GPU at a whopping 2.23 GHz. Albeit they're using a smaller 36 compute unit GPU, nonetheless those are excellent figures, and it's promising to see as it bodes well for their desktop counterparts, which have more thermal and power headroom. And speaking of desktop counterparts, we did have hardware leaks, aka Rogame, talk about a leak back in May where there would be 4 NAVI 21 RDNA 2 gaming graphics cards hitting the market, which I did cover in a previous video. It was speculated that Big NAVI would have a die size of around 505mm square, and this will allow for a 80 compute unit GPU that has been rumored to exceed the 2080 Ti's performance anywhere from 30 to 50%, which if it is true, that's going to be amazing. Even if that means they'll be clocking this GPU higher than the efficiency curve sweet spot, because let's face it, this is AMD we're talking about, and they love to do that sort of stuff. If it means being able to trade blows with the Nvidia's top cards, then I think they'll definitely go for it, especially if they're going to be competing with next gen. Adding on to that, AMD is finally going to be implementing hardware-based ray tracing solutions for these new GPUs, which will definitely make things very interesting, since before, if you wanted a DirectX ray tracing capable GPU, Nvidia was your only option. In the near future, that's all going to change now, as we'll have AMD joining in the battle with not just new GPUs, but also next-gen consoles. Now, we'll talk about Nvidia in just a moment, but I did also want to clarify that it hasn't been confirmed yet if these next-gen RDNA 2 graphics cards will be on TSMC's 7nm EUV process, or if it'll just be a refined 7nm process like the ones where the Ryzen 3000 XT series CPUs are fabbed on. I personally haven't seen any information regarding this, so I'm not going to even bother speculating about it. One thing is for certain though, and this was confirmed by David Kumar, who is AMD's CFO, that their next-gen graphics cards will be released before the next-generation game consoles, which are slated for a holiday 2020 launch. This coincides with all the rumors stating a September launch will be likely, and I could probably see that happening as well. Moving on to AMD's main competitor, Nvidia, and up until recently when it came to leaks or rumors in the first half of 2020, it was pretty much radio silence. But then on the 6th of June, we saw the huge leak from the popular Chinese tech forum ChipHell, where the leaker had claimed to have gotten pictures of the next-gen RTX 3080 graphics card. This leak was for the reference model, and what made it really intriguing was the design, the unique design of the GPU, where we had one fan on the front and one fan on the back. Then a few days later, we got another image showcasing the alleged heatsink of the 3080, and this new design. This new unique cooler definitely stirred up a lot of discussion within the computer hardware community, as we had never seen anything like this before. This also raised a few eyebrows because people are left wondering what could have prompted Nvidia to make such a radical change in the design. Was it maybe because the next-gen RTX 30 series GPUs are going to be more power hungry and therefore run hotter? Nonetheless, the fact that we had gotten an image of what was allegedly the reference RTX 3080 hinted at a nearby release date. If you guys recall back in 2016, prior to the release of the Pascal 10 series cards, there were some images leaked of the GTX 1080 and 1070's Founders Edition cooler back in April. We then saw Nvidia announce the cards the following month in May. It's obviously not a guarantee that Nvidia will follow the same exact kind of release window. Otherwise, we would have seen some kind of rumor of an announcement this month, but I suspect we're probably on track for some kind of a similar release window. Following that, we did have quite a few more leaks surrounding Nvidia's next-gen 30 series graphics cards, such as 3D Mark Time Spice scores, an aftermarket AIB card that was leaked from ASUS, and more. And I have covered those leaks on my channel. I'll link those videos down in the description if you want to check them out. One of the other things I wanted to recall was from July 7th, 2020. There was a report from Eager's Lab where they speculated that the next-gen RTX 3080 and 3080 Ti would enter mass production in the beginning of August. This wasn't a leak, but more so information posted based on previous launches. Now, the following day, Kopite7Kimi, who is a known hardware leaker, did post a tweet saying that GA106 and GA107 have already been taped out a few weeks prior to their tweet. These are smaller GPU dies which entry-level and mid-range cards like the RTX 3050 and RTX 3060 will be based on. Usually these smaller dies aren't taped out until a few months after the high-end cards have already gone through that process. What this signifies is that we're likely close to seeing mass production of the higher-end GPUs, like the 3080 and 3080 Ti, which does coincide with the information that Eager's Lab had posted. Because if you think about it, higher-end cards are always first on the release schedule, then a few months after that we see cards like the 3060 or 2060 that released, and then after that we'll see something like the 2050 and then 3050, or, well, there was no 2050, it was a 1650 and then a 1660, but you guys get the point. Along with that, just very recently, we've seen a post made by videocardsourcingoverclocking.com who claimed to have information regarding the launch of the Nvidia RTX 30 series. They state that Nvidia would launch the GeForce RTX 30 series in August. It would be a limited quantity launch with a focus on the Founders Edition models first. Custom graphics cards based on Ampere architecture would arrive in September. The site claims that they double-sourced this information, and VideoCards do state that they have reached out to the author of the story for more information, and based on what they were told, it does seem credible. With many other sources also reporting similar release windows, it just seems more and more likely that we'll see these cards launch in September, which when you think about it is not too far away from now. Adding on to that, what was really interesting was that we recently started to hear some rumors that Nvidia discontinued production of their high-end Turing RTX 20 series graphics cards. So that's your 2080 Ti, 2080, 2070, and the Super variants. This rumor initially came from IT Home, who are a Chinese tech site. Now, what also adds some credence to this rumor is the fact that on EVGA's website, they have actually stopped promoting the 2080 Ti. If you just go on their website, hover over their products, and you'll notice that the 2080 Ti is actually missing. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that the 2080 Ti's production has been discontinued, but it could perhaps be due to an extremely limited supply of 2080 Ti's due to the manufacturing warehouses running in limited capacity. But who knows what's really going on here? I just find it interesting that when that report came out, we see EVGA remove the 2080 Ti's from their website shortly after, and when things line up like that, it really makes you wonder that we might be pretty close to a launch here. So at this point, I've given you guys a brief rundown and recap of most of the major leaks and rumors that have come out surrounding these next-gen graphics cards from both AMD and Nvidia, and like I mentioned at the start of the video, you'd be wise to make do with what you have at the moment and wait for these next-gen graphics cards if you don't want to find yourself in a world of remorse. because the market will be greatly impacted depending on the performance improvements these cards bring to the table. Think about it, if you're at the moment looking to spend money on something like a 2070 Super or 2080 Super, you can wait it out a couple months and find yourself spending the same amount of money for a brand new flagship caliber card, which could drastically bring better performance. Alternatively, you could also attain previous flagship performance at a much lower cost. One of the biggest factors to consider this generation is that for the first time in many years, both AMD and Nvidia are going to be releasing new generation cards at around the same time, and both will be competing for the performance crown this time around. This isn't going to be like 2016 where Nvidia released high-end graphics cards like the 1080, meanwhile AMD is releasing entry-level cards like the RX 480 and don't really have a high-end competitor until like a year later. We're going to be seeing some legit competition from both companies right out of the gate, and that's what makes this whole release that much more exciting, interesting, and the anticipation factor is just gonna be really high here. As now we're looking at high-level competition, and this competitive behavior is what will give consumers better products with better prices. Or, at least I hope that will be the case. I made a video last month where I talked about why next-gen graphics cards will be much better than the previous gen, and I highly recommend checking that video out. Essentially, we could be looking at some Pascal levels of improvements here, and if that's the case, who wouldn't love seeing a GPU that costs around $450 to $500 and give you RTX 2080 Ti performance? Of course, I might be getting ahead of myself here, but I really do have a strong feeling about this likely being the case, as the previous generations have all been so underwhelming, and I do think both Nvidia and AMD are aware of this, as there have been, articles and reports recently stated in the past where Nvidia's revenue results weren't what they expected. Many PC gamers have also considered the next-gen consoles as they are packing some impressive specs, and let's face it, if the 3080 is launched and it costs like $700 or $800 but is not that much faster than the 2080 Ti, a lot of people would just say screw it and just buy a $500-ish console that will give them good performance, and they probably won't look back after that. Of course, you still have to look at the major disadvantages of owning a console as well, but I mean, this time around, they're just going to be a lot more viable now, and packing a lot better features such as ray tracing, HDMI 2.1, VRR support, 120 FPS support for competitive games. They've definitely got some attractive selling points there, so they're a lot more closer to PCs than they ever have been before. To close this video off, look, at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you. I do highly urge you to make do with what you have, and wait until September, as we'll likely see these cards come out by then. But if you can't, then I suggest saving some money, buying something off the used market, or if that isn't an option, then get an entry-level card, bide your time with that, and save the money until these new cards are out. Like I said, we're probably closer to the launch than a lot of people are aware, and there will be a lot more leaks and rumors to come, which I will be posting updates about. So if you guys found this video to be informative and entertaining, then leave a like. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Check out the video description for all the hardware I use. There will be links there. Use my affiliate links if you want to support the channel as well. And if you are interested in more content like this, then make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one.